It's great to be here. We're delighted to have Tricia and Rick with us today. Awesome.
Yay.
I wish we could have just spent another hour in worship because we were just really getting there. And that's always awesome. I love that. We're so happy to be back. Tamera said, please don't ask me to come up. So she'll do that another day. Yeah, we're just kind of getting acclimated to the whole time thing. Threw us off. I feel much better today. It seemed like it took a day or so. And yeah, there's a lot of crazy things going on. I've had a sense for a while, every time there's some things that go on the earth, if you notice, it's like sometimes being on a boat. And I'm reminded of James. He's like, don't be tossed to and fro, but just be steady and maintain this faith. And so anytime there seems to be a lot of intense climatic things go on, I'm always looking in through all of that and saying, okay, God's about ready to do something amazing. Like we're really coming in to some powerful things. And I think it's important that we do that, because what we do is we set our eyes on things above and not on things below. We fix ourselves on this intense glory that God is releasing in the earth. And the way that He's doing it is through you and through me and through all of those who are, leaning into all of these amazing things that He has. And so I'm going to share a few things. And for those of you who haven't watched it, the videos or stuff like that, we were releasing two or three videos over this period of time, and I have to be honest that I'm still processing so many things that have happened, and just the intensity of it. Like it's hard for me to sleep, not just because of the time change, but waking up at 1, waking up at 3, and I have so many things that just happened that I can't even share today because it's just too much. And so I'm gonna just kind of catch up on some crazy things that I believe are being unveiled in this time. And first of all, I just kind of want to throw some shockers out there just right off the bat. So if you feel, is it too cold in here? Is it okay? All right. If you have a jacket, you might throw it on or something, or take someone else's. I can't remember where this actually took place, whether it was in Korea or if it was on the plane, or there's such a mixture of stuff. But for a long time I've been speaking about defying gravity, and that gravity would be redefined, and this is a few years back. And we've been coming into that. The scientific world has been coming into that more and more. And we're beginning to see different signs of what that is, what that represents. And I just want to plant this seed in you. I was thinking about constructions. And it's amazing right now as a nation, in fact, many nations in the world, they're postured, they're like looking for another planet. Like let's maybe do something on Mars, or let's find a planet that's habitable, and so then we can like reposition ourselves there, expand ourselves. And so I believe that it's in our hearts to expand, it's in our hearts to increase. And one of the things that the Lord hit me with, and it's after this other experience I'm going to share with you, is He says, they're still looking for dry land. It's like you feel like you're out at sea and you're looking for dry land, another place to inhabit, to land on. And so He began to show me, He goes, actually, it's realm upon realm, city upon city, glory upon glory. And so one of the things that He began to show me is I saw cities that were stacked on top of each other. Where, say our world and another, if you were in New York, another city stacked on that, another city stacked on that. And I know this is challenging, I know this is messes with people's paradigm of how things work and operate. But, one thing that I've learned, and I'm learning now, and I'm more convinced than ever before, I've been convinced, but I'm even more convinced, And that is, God is constantly getting us outside of the box of limitation and getting us to see how different things, are going on. Now, a number of years ago, I prophetically spoke about light and how light would change and we would come into a greater revelation of light, and even about the solidity of light. And some of you might remember, but it was at a conference that we had when we were at the convention center, and I began to prophesy about these huge structures, and I saw their foundation, and their foundation wasn't concrete, but it was light. And since that time, there have been all kinds of these amazing, interesting breakthroughs where they've actually been able to solidify light. Like light wasn't just something transparent, but being able to cause it to come into a solid form. And I know we're at the baby steps of that, but there's some different things, bending light, all of these things. My point is manipulating light in a way that they didn't know that they really could. And so it's really going off the charts. So I'm beginning to see from a natural perspective of how some of these things just have the potential to come to pass. Now I realize it's both the natural and the spirit. Whenever we're seeing something that is about the future, the natural is often a shadow and type of the spirit. And I use oftentimes Moses built the tabernacle, and the tabernacle was a model, the true tabernacle that Jesus entered into when he went through the veil. And he says he entered into the true tabernacle, not the tabernacle made with the hands of God, but the one in heaven. So we are constantly dealing with this shift of types and shadows, getting out of the shadow of things, which Paul often speaks about, moving out of the types and shadows into the real deal. And so, in short, that's what Jesus, did for us. Brought us into the reality of sonship, of the kingdom of God, and said now the objective is to bring that dimension, that glory, that love on earth as it is in heaven. And so we're constantly leaning into that. And I think sometimes what we fail to recognize is that when the glory of God is increasing in the earth, meaning it's increasing in you, when it increases in you, it has a cause and effect on the natural realm. So there's this genius that begins to rise up. People begin to discover things, doors, gateways of limitations. They open up and expand, expand, expand. So with that in mind, this is what I want you to really lean in today, and I feel like what God is doing. In the midst of all of this stuff that seems limiting, in the midst of all of these things over the past month or two that appeared chaotic, that have been sad, senseless lives taken, all of this, in the midst of that, God is saying, I'm expanding you. I'm not decreasing you. That all of these things that happen try to bring people into an illusion that they are decreasing, that they're being limited, and it tries to place a restriction upon your movement. And then what God does is he counteracts it with this huge reality of, no, my kingdom is expanding. In fact, my kingdom has always been expanding. It's not decreasing, but it's increasing. So if you remember right, it was a few weeks ago, I said we're coming over the tipping point where we're kind of at the top of this mountain and we're cresting over to the other side. And it means that some unusual things are about ready to take place. Now, so let me, in saying that, without going further into that, when we were in South Korea, we were getting ready to do our first meeting, which in their time was on a Sunday. And was it a Sunday? Okay, it was a Sunday. And while sitting there, unexpectedly, my eyes were just opened up to the Spirit, and I saw this angel, and he was stacking blocks like they were big blocks, and there was these titles on these blocks. But it was like a few of them, like I've had to go back and like re-look at that, like there were other blocks, had other titles, but some of the top few were, one said uncommon. And I shared a video, and I'm not going to go into all of the details, but uncommon. And so I realized I was prophetically speaking to the people after I'd seen this block. It said uncommon. It just rose up my spirit. He said, get ready for the unusual, get ready for the rare. And I was looking it up, like when that happens, I'm on my phone, I'm looking up different things, getting revelation of different things. Get ready for something historic. And so I began to prophesy to the people in South Korea. And I said, right now, something is happening, and we are being encouraged to do a couple things, because another block that I had seen and already previous experience when we were at Seattle the week or two before we went to Korea was the Lord said, I want you to start inviting creation to respond to the glory that is in you. Now, we've kind of been doing that, in different ways, on and off, prophetically speaking about that. But God was saying, I want you to be intentional about it. I want you, because creation is postured to respond to the manifestation of the sons and daughters of God. But I never really heard it in the context of inviting creation to respond. Now, there's many scriptures that actually back this up. David, one of the greatest psalmists that ever lived, he would lean into places in worship, and he would begin to encourage creation to magnify, to reveal their glory, to respond to the glory of God. And he would say things like, shine, stars, like you've never shone before. Sun, he'd speak to the sun and the moon and different things with creation. And so the point is that he was postured in a way to where he realized that he could influence all of creation through the sound that God had placed within him. So here we were in Seattle, and the Lord was saying, I want you to begin to do this, and I want this to be a continual thing. So during that meeting, I was telling the people what was going on, and I said, we're going to invite creation to respond. And I said, I know this sounds crazy, but welcome to my world. And we're just going to invite creation to respond to the glory and so forth and so on. And so there was this intensity, all the stuff that was happening, and there were prophetic words being released, get ready for something uncommon, unusual, and all. And this is before I even had seen the uncommon block, right? So I'm already speaking about it, already saying certain things. And so then there was this prophetic word about lightning, and they went into a worship song. Elizabeth Cooper and her husband and the people that were doing worship, and all of a sudden they started bouncing off that prophetic word, or it began to enrich their worship and started going into lightning striking and all of this stuff. Well, unpredicted, and this is something that I always do with Tamera a lot. I'm saying, okay, now look on the phone, look at the weather, there's nothing going on here or whatever. So that way when it happens, it's not like, oh, that was on the weather report. So I'm always showing her my phone or something like that, because we're leaning in. You need to know that this is a response of whatever. Anyhow, long story short, all of a sudden, it was a few hours later or whatever, there was this intense lightning that began to strike, thundering, all of these different things. And so we were like, whoa. And it really amplified the faith of the people. And because I was being very deliberate about certain things that were not going on and so forth and so on. And I said, but, this is baby steps. And we've experienced things like this before. And I was reiterating the fact that God was saying, I want you to invite creation, in other words, like a choir, to join you and begin to herald this thing in the earth and respond to this intense glory. Again, I know that sounds crazy. So, we go to Korea. I'm pretty hyped up about all of this and feeling pretty motivated. And so, we are approaching them on Sunday the same way. I shared a little bit of the experience. I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to invite creation to respond. And I told them that day, I said, I just realized something. I said, sometimes I'm a little slow. And I said, it's apparent today. I said, because I was sitting on this front row, and during that time, I said, my eyes were open to the spirit of this angel that was there. And I said, his name is Outlander. Because when I was sitting there, I was like, who is this? And it just rose up in me, Outlander. And I thought, oh my gosh, Outlander. And my mind is racing because I'm thinking of, well, isn't there like a game called Outlander? I'm just, that's just what happens here. I'm like, Outlander, that sounds like too weird. Anyhow, yeah. So
So obviously, again, I looked up the word outlander. It means rare. It means outlandish. It means unusual. And so I'm thinking, wait a minute. That's what the Lord has been speaking to me about. Some outlandish things, some unusual things that are about ready to take place. So I invited the people. I said, hey, I know this might put you on tilt, but there's an angel here named Outlander, and he's kind of heading up some outlandish things. And so I'm expecting, I need you to come into an agreement with something, outlandish, something rare that is going to take place while we're here. And so I did with them what we were doing in Seattle. I said, you're going to invite creation to respond to the glory that is in you and to align itself with this time and season. So they just joyfully stepped in, even like, we're not sure why we're doing this, but yay, like giving me the smile, like, yeah, you go, guy. Anyhow, so we're just like leading into this place in the Spirit and just having an awesome time. That was on a Sunday. On Monday, there was a report that comes out, and it was the science world. I can't remember if NASA, all of these groups, 3,000 some physicists across, the world. Said, we're getting ready to announce something, that is like off the charts, and we're very excited or whatever. So it gets my attention, and I'm like, what is going on? And so the next day, which was on October the 17th, our time there, on October the 17th, they announced that there was this collision of two neutron stars that had collided. And this collide sent out these magnetic waves, just ripples across space. They said so intense that it literally caused an expansion. But in that, there were so many things that happened, and one of which they for the first time witnessed the disbursement, the revelation of gold and platinum that was just released out of this explosion, and some other type of precious metal that was released. Now this was historic because this was kind of a manifestation, a revelation of a theory that Einstein had in his day of theorizing that these things come from this way and this is how it happened. But up to this date, no one had ever witnessed it with their eyes. Now, you're going to have to give me grace because I'm not a scientist. And so I'm one of those people that when something happens, I'm diving into it, trying to gain as much information and trying to present it as accurate as I possibly can. But all of these things are unfolding. I realize this huge treasure is just released. All these things are going on. And this was the crazy thing. I didn't know this part until I got home. We get home, and all of a sudden, they release a heading in the news and start speaking about the periodic table of elements, and how it's a game change in the periodic table of elements, because a lot of these things that were on the table were actually theory. They weren't like proven sources where they come from. So then they look at this gold, they look at all this other stuff, and they go, oh my gosh, this is where some of this comes from. So they send out this announcement, we're going to revisit, we're going to redefine, go in this whole thing. And I didn't bring my book, but I have a book called Guardians of Spiritual Maturity. And in a chapter in the book of Guardian Spiritual Maturity, I prophetically speak about something that would happen to the periodic table. And I go into this thing, I'm prophetically speaking about elements and the physics, the world of physics, and how it would change because of new discoveries that would take place. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing that, I'm like, wait a minute. This is the prophetic word. I wish I would have brought it, but, oh, hold on. I might have a little thing here. Well, let me read to you first, because it's one of the titles that was on the blocks, The Alteration of Physics. Wow. Now, get this. This is what they reported. Astronomers unlocked one of the universe's best-kept secrets. Since the 50s, scientists have wondered, where do most of the elements in the periodic table come from? We know that elements like carbon, oxygen, nitrogen are forged in the hot, dense cores of massive stars. But even stars aren't powerful enough to create heavy elements like silver and gold. And I don't know what this is. Is it cesium? C-E-S-I-U-M? Cesium? It's some type of cesium? Okay, cesium. And so it's obviously some type of metal or something. And that says, turns out the origin of 2/3 of the periodic table is unconfirmed. Now, a single event has given us a vital clue now to revisit the periodic table and redefine what it is. I'm telling you. Is that crazy or what? Now, this is what's so wild. When I was writing that, I felt like, okay, there's not going to be many people that are going to be able to relate to some prophetic guy speaking about a redefining of the elements, the periodic table, all this stuff, of some event. I mean, I realize that. I'm writing this book, people look at it to begin with and like, what in the world? How does this pertain to my life? And you know what I'm saying? And it seems like insanity, and then all of a sudden, a single event happens, and it turns everything around. It opens up a gate. It reveals something. So before I move on, I want to release this over you and encourage you. I believe that you are standing at the threshold where all of a sudden one event, one moment is literally going to turn your life around. In other words, what seemed like out of reach, what you thought you could not obtain, what you thought was not you weren't going to acquire or enter into, there is one moment of intense revelation or understanding or something that will happen that will literally open up a gateway, a doorway for you to step into and lay hold of what God has destined for you in this time. That's good stuff, no matter how you slice it. Okay, so this thing so you can imagine what Korea at that time is feeling, because we're like, look, because I told him, I said, if I speak about something, and you've heard me say this 100 times, I'm not just talking about something that will happen, I'm speaking about it on a historic level. So if I'm speaking about weather, if I say something about this and that, I'm always saying, no, it's going to be historic. It's at an historic level. And so I realized that something was happening. Now I felt a little bit, I don't know, I was trying to describe it to Tamera, like dumb. I felt dumb. That's the only way I can say it. So here, for a number of years, I've been encountering different things, outlandish things, rare things, unusual things about the future and the cosmos and all of this, and it just seemed whatever. And this whole time, Outlander was partnering with me. And so all of a sudden, my eyes are opened up, and I'm seeing something that really was there with me all the time. I mean, I was moving by faith in this unction, but I'm like, Outlander, like, oh my gosh, like, you're the guy. Like, you're the one. Like a bell went off inside of me, and my faith just rose to this other level. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Then I was, telling Tamera, I was like, I can't sleep. Like, like something has happened, and like all of a sudden, you know what I mean? The light comes on. So when that happened, my faith literally, it just leaped. I wanted to rip off my shirt, Superman, I mean, seriously, I was just really, having a moment. And my moment was really because, as I have said so many times, when you hear something, when you're moving in faith, it has a level of insanity to it. Because it's that square thing in the round hole. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in the timing. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. And then all of a sudden, something happens and it unfolds, and you're like, "Wow, this is crazy." And I've never really understood, because this another thing that blew me away. Dealing with light years and all of this stuff and the distance and how it works, and it's different, the time works different and all this, that an event that can happen a long time ago, like the magnetic waves of this explosion or this collision, they actually picked them up August 17th of 2017. So exactly 2 months later, on October 17th, it manifested. They could see it. But they're saying that it actually took place thousands of years prior. that it has taken that amount of time and with instrumentation that we have to actually manifest because of time and distance. And I realized something when I'm reading this, I'm like, that's crazy. Now, I've read about stuff like that before. I have looked at that, but it's like, no, this actually already happened, but it's taken this long for you to actually see it or witness it. And I was telling Tamera, I was like, this is how the prophetic works. That is how the prophetic work is. You see something by the Spirit afar off, you speak about it, it actually happens in another time, before time, and you're speaking it, declaring it, and then all of a sudden, either months or years later, it comes into fruition, but it actually took place somewhere before time. Are you with me? So I'm writing these things in these books, and looking at all this, I'm actually seeing something that has already happened, that happened before I saw it happen, and yet it had not yet manifested, and then it comes into view. My point is this, is that I believe that one of the things that the enemy is constantly trying to do is minimize the genius that is in you, is minimizing the value that is in you, minimizing your ability to see beyond the moment, beyond the day. And one thing that he's constantly trying to do is use the current circumstances of life to create a blinder that keeps you from seeing beyond the moment into the glory of tomorrow. Now, I've said this repeatedly, and some people have trouble with it, but I'm constantly saying, okay, you know what? I'm not here to just predict an outcome, but I'm here to create one.
That's right.
And one of the things I'm actually beginning to realize, especially with Outlander, is Outlander is like there to assist, because I know he's not just assisting me because I'm not the only one moving in this realm, but he is there to help create an outcome. Not just to show you something that is already in motion, but to help you create something, put it in motion, and to bring it into being. Why? Because that is your creative ability as a son and daughter of God. You are a co-creator with God. That means you get a thought, you get an idea, and when you begin to release that idea, you actually put something in motion, and the very thing that was invisible, that was inside of you, a treasure that is part of you, that is actually part of the kingdom of God, that it doesn't come into view until you speak it, till you think it, till you say it, and then all of a sudden you put something in motion, and then it becomes visible.
Yes.
And I'm convinced that there's all kinds of uncommon things that we have literally broken a barrier, and we've moved into this uncommon realm where there are things that are going to become visible that you actually carried inside of you, have been carrying it inside of you, and God is just looking for the daring, is just looking for the risk takers, is looking for those that will not allow the natural realm to manipulate them, to govern them, but will break through the barrier and release what is in you. That covers every field. So you understand, it covers every field. It doesn't matter what your vocation is. It doesn't matter what your business is, that you have the potential to create something, to form something that isn't even reality and bring it into reality because of what you carry.
Yes.
To me, that's just off the charts. Let's see. I gotta just wade through some of this here. I'm gonna skip rocks, and the reason I'm gonna do this is because I got woke up at 3 o'clock, something like that, and the Lord begins to speak to me about the age of maturity, and approaches me in this way. He speaks to me about the age. He goes, like 18 years old is like considered the age of becoming an adult. He goes, actually, that's a bad form of government that has been governing the youth that I'm going to remove. Now, think about this. We look at it like safety, like you're not old enough or whatever. And what the Lord is showing me, he says, I'm changing the age of what people have determined, the age of maturity. In other words, the age of responsibility. And I don't have time to go into it, but I looked up I looked up the word. Let me see. Did I do that? Yeah, okay, I don't want to go that far. I'll share on this later. But I want to say this. The age of maturity is changing. Why? Because there is a revelation, a manifestation of the heart and mind of God, of the genius of God that is rising up in a youth that is literally off the charts. That means that they are entering into a level of responsibility that will exceed the years of those that were before them. In other words, they will grow up into this mind that you'll go, oh my gosh, how, what, you can't, how would you know that? How would you? I know of people, Tamera and I know of people right now, young kids that are being trained, things that they're encountering that is off the charts, that even the people around going, that's stupid, oh really? Let's entertain this. Let's hear what they're saying. Let's see what is going on. And God is saying, I'm changing the level of maturity. Now get this, I was looking at some things in the Hebrew, and how the Hebrew people actually looked at maturity, how they looked at their sons or daughters and determined their age. And where we know this thing that this traditional thing called the bar mitzvah, when they turn 13 years old. Well, that's like coming out of puberty. That's not like becoming an adult. And stay with me. So, in the Hebrew, the adult is when they actually turn 20. So, in other words, when they break the barrier of 19 and enter into 20, then they are considered of a mind where they would be responsible. I don't have time to go into the history of when they were going to cross over to the promised land. That's why those that were 20 and older were killed off in the desert. Because they were considered of a mind, of an age of maturity, that they were disobeying God, and therefore they were not allowed to enter into the promised land. And those that were younger walked in the promise, entered into that promised land. Say Caleb and what was the other guy? Caleb and Joshua. Yeah, they were able to go in with that generation. Now, why this means something to me is not just the fact that it's 20, but I just sent a prophetic word to a guy who's well known, who is a big ministry, has all of this influence and stuff. I don't want to say his name because I don't want to be a name thrower. But I sent him this word a while back and said, in 2020, this is what I see happening, something changing. And I began to describe all of these things, not knowing that 2020, because I was speaking about a maturity, something that was going to manifest at a level that it's never manifested before, not realizing that even in the Hebraic mind, that 20 was a level of maturation. So what I'm saying is, in 2020, there is a barrier, there are curtains that are going to be pulled back, there are certain revelations that are going to rise up in a youth, in a people, and be revealed in people who are older. In other words, a maturation like we've never seen before in 2020 is going to be released over the earth. That means that there are unusual happenings. There are things that are going to take place in the heavens above. Unusual activities that will begin to respond to what? The maturation. Yes. The spiritual maturation that we have been waiting for, that God has been waiting for. For the reason we have the fivefold ministry is until they grow up into the revelation of sonship, up to the maturation. And I'm telling you that a barrier is going to be broken in 2020, and we're building up to it now. And I believe that those that are entertaining heaven, sons and daughters that are being educated in heaven, that they're going to release something on the earth that is going to create a revolution in science and all of the other laws of physics and everything else. They're going to they're going to be problem solvers. They're going to pull back curtains, and people are going to stand in awe and go, oh my goodness, just like these two stars that collided and brought forth a revelation that was only a theory. And this is important. You see, Einstein, what he was speaking about was just a theory. And what happened is it broke the theory. In other words, they were like, this is no longer a theory, it's reality. And I feel like that what God is saying is that we are about ready to collide with the glory of God, with the truth of God, the Word of God, the revelation of God, there is a collision that is going to take place where maybe some things you've just been thinking about, theorizing, I believe this is God, I think this is God, just like me writing something about the future, I believe this is God, I believe this is the future, and all of a sudden it's no longer theory, it becomes a reality. That is the kingdom that is in you. It's going to release the realities of heaven on the earth. You're going to release, you are going to be a manifestation of the prayer that Jesus has prayed and that all of heaven's been cooperating. Pray that my kingdom will come on the earth as it is in heaven. Yes. In other words, what heaven has is reality. Yes. Heaven has the real thing. And pray that the reality of heaven comes upon the earth. I'm here to tell you, we're going to be set free. I think I can fly, and I think I can talk. But we're about ready to be set free from theories. From just theologies, or even eschatologies, that look to just the natural. Now, I got to say this, because even though it is a Hebraic fact concerning the culture, the Jewish culture, of the age thing, 20 years old is like throughout all the Old Testament of different moments that happen and things that was considered adulthood. There's all these different things. But even though in the natural that is a fact, that is not the reality. That is a shadow of the reality. I pray that you hear this, because what God is doing is He's transferring us from the natural into a spiritual reality. Yes. Where He's transferring the body of Christ from just the theory of love, just from the theory of grace, from the theory of this and that, and transferring us into a level of reality of what that really is beyond our experience or comprehension. I just think that's crazy. So I was thinking about all these different ages. But see, what this does is it's a game change. A game change in this sense. That now when I hear like 1 Corinthians 13:11, let me read it for you. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. Yeah. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. People, you got to hear this. We're going to be putting away childish things. Yeah. We're coming into a maturation of the Spirit of God. See, he was thinking here that he understood the Jewish culture. He understood that, a person that turns 20 goes into adulthood. But the idea was that they put away childish things and enter into a level of maturation. He is using an analogy of a culture and bringing us into the revelation of a spiritual maturity, not a natural maturity, but a spiritual maturity, and saying that I put away those childish ways of thinking, theorizing, all this stuff. Now I'm into this real deal. And then from that point on, we go from glory to glory to glory. So I thought about things that deal with the aging process. Let's see, age. I put age equals spiritual maturity. Age equals natural maturity, because it's always both true in the spirit and the natural. Age equals spiritual authority. That means we're going into an increasing level of authority. Age equals wisdom and understanding. We're going into an age, a maturation of wisdom and understanding. Grasping things that we were struggling with. We're not going to grasp them anymore. We're not going to struggle with them anymore, because a light's going to come on. Just like when I'm in a meeting, suddenly in a moment, literally in a twinkling, a blinking of an eye, I come into a revelation that Outlander is there. It has always been with me, and it rocks my world, and I'm like, oh, now everything makes sense. All this crazy stuff, it's your fault. Well, that's kind of how I felt. But anyhow, maybe not fully. But an age that isn't determined by how old you are. Not the physical age, but the spiritual maturity. That's what we're leaning into. I just listened to someone send me. Sometimes people send me the craziest stuff because they'll hear me speak about something and they'll go, oh, you need to check this out. And it was a YouTube thing of this boy who's 5 years old. I don't know if you've seen it, but he's 5 years old. And he's in the cockpit of the plane talking to the captain. Did you see that? And the captain's, like asking him all these questions. In fact, the captain couldn't ask too many questions because the boy was just rambling off and, talking about the rudders, talking about all of this, different operations of how the plane worked. And, oh yeah, so when you do this, you got to do this. And when this happens, this takes place. And he's just like giving him a breakdown. And the captain's like, how old are you? And he goes, I'm 5 years and 11 months. And he's like, bless you. You can tell he didn't know how to respond. He just thought, this kid is off the charts. And he was like, who's your mom and dad? And all this stuff. But I mean, literally, like he had this engrossed knowledge about how this plane worked, like all of it. And you could tell when he was speaking, it wasn't like just something he read or whatever, but he was like intertwined with it. Like, yeah, this is how this worked. That's what operates this. And finally, at the end, it's only like 5 minutes long, but at the end, it's like, we need to go meet your parents. Then he's like, so what are you going to do? Someone asked him, I think it was one of the stewardess or whatever. So what are you going to do? What's your future? And he goes, well, I'm going to be a captain. I'm going to be just like him. I'm going to be a pilot, and I'm going to, 5 years, 11 months old.
Wow.
And this understanding flowing out of him that is off the charts. I'm thinking, what's that kid going to be like when he's 10 years old? But it's just intense, and he's one of many people that are rising up in the earth, and many of which are being taught by heavenly encounters, which takes it, again, another level into something that is beyond our imagination. I just love this. I wrote this down. It says, God does not hold... oh no, I don't want to get into that. That's something else. I had to write all of these things down because I knew. Oh, okay. So here's another one. So I've spoken about this. You might have forgotten about this, but I've actually got it in one of the things that I've written. That when they were seeing the resources, the gold, the platinum, and all these things that came out of, that manifested out of this collision, one of the things that the Lord was speaking to me about, and I've shared on, is that we were going to tap into resources in the space above. So even things that seem limited in the earth, that we were actually going to tap in to unusual resources, which means that there is a technology that we're going to acquire that's going to enable us to actually gather certain resources in the space above in ways that we never dreamed. And so the Lord was stirring me once again about this idea, and I'm just using this as an analogy, about this idea of mining in space. And this is what he does to me. Mining in space, but what he's saying, I'm going to teach you how to mine in the outer limits of your life. You see, right now, we look for everything that is within the earth, and it's huge. There's major resources in the earth that we haven't even tapped into yet, that haven't even been discovered. But he said, I'm going to show you how to mine things by the Spirit. I'm going to show you how to be miners. Find the treasures of the Spirit. Tap into them and acquire them supernaturally. And even the things that I'm sharing to you now, speaking to you, I've been mining in the Spirit. Outlander is an amazing miner. He knows how to tap into these things and bring these things into revelation. Now, if it puts you on tilt that I'm using this guy, Outlander, this angel, think nothing of it, because it's totally common practice in the kingdom of God. If I were standing here telling you, and there were signs and wonders breaking out in bodies physically, and I said, oh, there's an angel, healing angel here, and he's the one provoking this or whatever, you wouldn't think anything of it. Oh, yeah, we heard about that, we believe in that. So now I'm talking about Outlander, who brings forth outlandish things. Brings you into the revelation of things that are outlandish to what? To cause a shift in the government of the land, a shift in the government of the people, so that you can actually tap into something, mine something in the Spirit that you've yet to lay hold of. So this is what happens. Once you begin to lean into these realms, into these fields of supernatural mining, it actually creates a reality in the earth. The natural, it starts manifesting in the natural realm.
Yes.
Amen.
Oh.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
So gravity, I've been speaking for a number of times, written this in some books that I've written about gravity being redefined. Because of this event and other things, they are literally redefining gravity in ways. They're looking at gravity, this gravitational waves and things that have happened, the way that they travel, how they actually expand. I don't understand this, but they said that it was so intense that it literally expanded space.
Yes.
Wow.
See, again, what I do is I always translate everything spirit. I mean, I train myself to do that. So when I hear something about being expanded, gravitational, waves, expanding, increasing space, all this stuff, then I tap into the Spirit, and the Lord is like, yeah, that's the same force that is inside of you. You actually have the ability to increase time and space. The reason that space is increasing and all of creation is expanding because of the glory in you, the reason it's moving and the reason it's accelerating, accelerating. I love doing this. Accelerating. I'm hearing something again. I love doing this. Accelerating. When you begin to see something, remember it's like quantum physics. When the particle knows that you see it, it responds to you differently. It responds to the fact, I'm seeing. And now I'm going to operate. I'm going to move differently. Yeah, that's part of the world of quantum physics. And so when you see something, it reacts to your ability to see it. That's how it is in the spirit. When you begin to see something, even in your heart and even in your mind, all of a sudden it begins to respond. It begins to accelerate. I believe that when you release a prophetic word, when you tap into an outlandish thing that you know that it is God, the moment you begin to speak it, the moment you begin to release it, you cause an acceleration to take place. It's already in motion, but it speeds it up because it breaks the barrier of time and space. Dilute that. All of the illusions that we have been playing around with and getting into are about ready to collide with truth in such a way that they will lead. Many of you, when you walk out this door, you begin to wrestle with your identity. No one likes me. I'm this, I'm that, or whatever. All that is a revelation, a manifestation that you don't know who you are as a son and daughter of God. I'm telling you that a day is coming that you will bring that under your feet, and no longer will you let that senseless act of manipulation of the enemy trying to depreciate you as a daughter or as a son, because you will know that you have been equipped from heaven above and that you are the life of truth on earth as it is in heaven. Please stand to your feet. Jesus, we just give you praise. We just settle into this revelation right now. We just settle into this truth right now. We by faith right now, we're just taking off the lid. This is what I love about Father. Father is saying, I want to remove every limitation. You see, He's already removed them. He says, I want to bring you into the revelation that all things are possible to those who believe. And we're breaking the barrier of a mindset that has been in the church where it actually believes that some things are possible. It hasn't entered into a level of maturation where it believes that all things are possible. That means anything that you could entertain right now, even in your natural mind, that you would deem impossible. Sir, the Lord saying, no, all things are possible. And I want you to grow up. And I'm hearing the Lord say this, let this mind that is in Christ be in you. Let this thought process, let this understanding, maybe you're dealing with something physically, maybe it's financial, maybe there's something that you're just wrestling with right now, maybe it's a level of identity, maybe it's relationship, maybe it's something that you're trying to accomplish in business, whatever, and you wake up, and I do this. I wake up and I'm like, how in the world am I going to do this? How in the world that I'm going to get there? And I'm constantly leaning into this revelation where the Lord has encouraged me, come into this place, all things are possible. Michael, I'm not holding anything back from you. I'm not keeping it away. I've given you all that I am. I've given the same love that I love my son. I love you. With the same love that I love him, I love you. I'm giving it all to you. All things are possible to those who believe. All things will work according to those who are called according to His purpose. All things work together for the good to those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. That means that you literally have the ability, and I'm using this as a metaphor, you have the ability to literally transpose physics.
Yes.
All things work together for the good. That means it doesn't matter how bad it was. It doesn't matter how hard it seemed like that it robbed you or it did this and that. You have the ability to literally turn that thing on its head and transpose it into the life of God simply because you love Him and you're desiring Him. And He's saying, I won't keep anything back. And anything that is contrary to your life advancement, I will work it for the good.
Yes.
So I'm here to tell you that as sons and daughters of God, we are transposers of heaven on earth. We're about ready to transpose circumstances and conditions into a level of glory that many never dreamed possible. God is transposing right now the government of this nation into a government that many never dreamed. All the enemy is throwing out anything and everything he can to prevent this advancement. But I declare to you and prophetically speak that it will not happen. He will not be able to stop the acceleration that is going, because it's not by flesh, it's not by might or power, but it's by the Spirit of the God that something is moving, something is advancing right now. And no matter what happens, remember, you have to embrace this. Remember, I told you in the beginning that even before our current president came into president, that the harder that they would come against, the harder that it would like try to take him down, the stronger he would become. That it would fortify. Why? Because that is a kingdom principle. Whenever you give yourself over to the heart and mind of God, by the same thing that the enemy uses against you, that is the very same thing that empowers you to bring you into a place of walking as an overcomer. Therefore, Paul says that in my weakness, I've learned His strength. I've discovered, I've tapped into some things. And all we got to do is learn how to bless. Bless those who curse you. Bless those who come against you. Bless. Be like one of the most intense blessers that you've ever seen. And it will unveil, it will reveal a revelation. Are you wrestling with dark things? Is there things that the enemy tries to use against you, whether it's lust or whatever is going on? The Spirit of the Lord, sometimes it's resentment. Sometimes it's just something that you're refusing to let go. The Spirit of the Lord is like, I'm not holding that against you. I'm not putting shame on you. Get out of that. Be free of that. See who you are in me. Because you are an amazing son. You are an amazing daughter. I'm telling you. I'm going through a major transformation.
Thank you, Lord.
Like there's something, it's like literally I'm being turned inside out. Seemingly at moments and times, like when I leave even a place like this, that I have to posture myself in such a way that I fortify what God is saying and speaking and declaring. Why? Because the enemy, one thing that he does is he's always trying to come and take that seed, to steal it away through a report or through a thought, through whatever it is. And all it does is it manifests as something continually that God is waiting for us to rise up into a level of kingdom maturation unlike we've ever known. And this is the thing. We've adopted this mentality. Well, this is life. You always got to do this. You always got to go through. I'm telling you, it's a lie. If you want to go through life believing that you never reach a place to where you actually think that you conquer something, where it comes under you, where you never really transpose into the mind of Christ at a level where you literally bring things that seemed impossible under your feet, then you're given into deception. You're giving into a lie. And if you leave this earth in that way and enter into the presence of God, He's not going to hold it against you. He's not going to say, oh, you fool, you could have did this, you could have. He's going to welcome you. He's going to love you. He's going to say, you're amazing. But you're going to realize that you could have done a whole lot more. But it's not going to be shame. It's not going to be any of that. You're just going to see this full potential that you had all the time. But He won't love you any less. And this is what I've learned. This is what I've discovered about my relationship in God, that it seems like the times where I feel like that I'm just coming short of something, that He's just loving me deeper and further. And I'm like, but God, I wish I could have, Michael. No, don't do that. Just keep coming. You're doing great, son. Just keep coming. Look how far you've come since this and that. You just keep going. Don't let those things pull you away. I'm not looking at you. I'm not judging you. Yes, I'll discipline you in areas of your life, but it's all about maturity. It's all about bringing you and equipping you at this level, but I'm not going to condemn you. I'm not going to deteriorate. That's not me. Come on, son.
Yes.
And in that sense, Peter writes it this way, that though you stumble, you will never fail. Can you imagine being in a relationship that even if it's like I messed up, God's like, just keep coming. Because though you stumble, you never fail.
Amen.
I'll never look at you as a failure. Because that's the kind of Father that we have.
Hallelujah.
And today, if you're leaning into a word, if you're leaning into a knowing and desire, I'm prophetically speaking over you right now that I believe within this week that there is something that you're going to tap into. It's going to unfold. I have a sense that some of you, you've been leaning into just like, I got to get past this. I'm wanting this. I'm wanting to see. I'm wanting to know something that I hadn't known before. I'm telling you, something is going to unfold this week in your life. I'm coming into an agreement with the motivation, with the revelation, with the intensity of heaven that is inside of you. And right now I'm sensing and feeling that we're leaning into this place of revelation where we're going to lay hold of something about our identity, the understanding of God. This cap that looks like it's been placed on, it's false. It's not true. It's an illusion, and it gets lifted up. And the Spirit of the Lord is saying to all of us right now, the sky is the limit. In other words, reach for the stars, because if you reach for the stars, you'll discover that the stars will just be a platform that you can stand on and go into the next galaxy that is beyond that. And then the next galaxy that is beyond that. Why? Because there is nothing that He would keep from you, not wanting you to know or experience, because that's who you are. That's the value that you carry. The breath of God, the life of God, the love of God that is in you. I just want to do a simple little practice. Having Tamera come, she's like, yeah. And we're going to step into this new season. We're going to step into what I want to title this, an uncommon generation. That's who you are. Outlander here is an outlandish angel. In other words, he brings you into the realm of what seems to be impossible. He brings you into the rare and to the unusual. Get ready to see rare things happening on your property. Get ready to see rare things that rise up, unusual things that take place, that literally reveal to you that a shift of government has taken place over your land, over your lives, over your home, over your children.
Yes.
And I just got to throw this little plug in. I know it sounds a little bit out of whatever. But remember Elizabeth. Remember Elizabeth. She's over in Thailand. And if you want to give it to that ministry, you can go online. We have a thing there that you can donate to what she's doing over there, educating those wonderful, beautiful people for a time such as this to help transpose them into the kingdom reality that God has for them. Are you ready? We're going to step in. Father, we just give you praise. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Just by faith right now. You are indicating that you are stepping in. Those that watch via video, you're stepping into this next revolution, evolution, uncommon realm that God has for you in this time. And I just declare, come on, Outlander, work on behalf of all of those right now that are coming into an agreement with this new time and this new season. Because for a time such as this, you were born. And so we declare it now in Jesus' name. Come on, give Him praise! All right, awesome.